In India, stratification based classes, some of them are excluded. We identify them as backward classes, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. On the basis of gender, on the basis of caste, a double disadvantage they are facing. In today's class, we are going to discuss about the position of backward classes. Presently, we are using a word OBC, other backward classes. It can be defined as a collective term, and this term is used by the Government of India to classify castes which are socially and educationally disadvantaged. Along with scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, we have other backward classes who are educationally, socially and culturally backward. Not only that, they are also excluded. They face so many disabilities because of this exclusion. Why this exclusion is happening and what measures we are taking, how far we could bring them into the mainstream, how far we could include them. Let us have an idea about all these aspects today. Let us see a simplest definition of backward classes. It can be defined as a social category which consists of all the socially, educationally, economically and politically backward groups, castes and tribes. Let us see what is meant by the social category. It is a social category. That means we classify some groups as a kind of disadvantageous groups and we exclude them from economic participation, political representation, socio-cultural participation, and not only that, we consider them as outside the purview of our group. Here comes the concept of underclass. When we talk about social exclusion, one theory talks about underclass also. So, most of the backward classes are underclass groups. They are disadvantaged on three grounds: social and cultural. They are disadvantaged educationally, and also economically. Since all these exclusions are based upon our social situations, we consider this group as a social category. Justice 𝗂𝗽𝗃, former Chief Justice of India, defined backward classes as an ascertainable and identifiable group of persons based on caste, religion, race, language, occupation and such others, with definite characteristics of backwardness in various aspects of human existence, be it social, cultural, economic, political and such others. That means other backward classes belong to a category. Whenever there is backwardness, then that group can be considered as a backward class. That backwardness may be anything, whether it is social or cultural or economic or political. If they are backward classes. That is the reason when we see the caste system in our country, a particular community may be backward in economic terms or educational backwardness may be there, but politically they may not be. Some groups may be economically forward, but socially, culturally, politically, educationally may be very, very backward. Hence, it is a kind of dynamic situation. Those who suffer from the stigma of untouchability or near untouchability, we are calling them as scheduled castes. These groups just now we have included into other backward classes. Here it is not caste but class, because scheduled castes also are economically, educationally, culturally backward. Not only that, we are having scheduled tribes. because these people are not yet sufficiently assimilated into the mainstream of the nation, hence they are backward economically or socially or culturally or politically or educationally. Not only that, due to long neglect, they are also forced to commit certain activities which we consider as crimes. We, particularly British government, called them as ex-criminal tribes. Even these groups also are backward. They too fall under the category of backward classes. We have many nomadic societies. These nomads have no occupation or a fixed abode, fixed habitation, and many times they either beg or they act as jugglers, or they are also street dancers, they do mimicry. They will be roaming from one place to another place or one village to another village, and even these groups also backward. We are having so many communities consisting largely of agricultural laborers or landless agricultural laborers. Because of their economic, social, educational backwardness, we consider them as backward classes. In our society, we are having communities consisting largely of tenants without any occupancy rights, and because of this situation, their economic position is very insecure and even their tenure also is insecure. Even these groups also come under the category of backward classes. We have certain communities consisting of a large percentage of small landowners with uneconomic holdings. If let us say 1 acre or half acre or 2 acres land is there, where land is not that fertile or not that good to do agricultural operations, their income will be very low and they too are socially, educationally backward. Even these communities also fall under the category of backward classes. Certain communities engaged in cattle breeding or sheep breeding or fishing on small scale. These occupations are the traditional occupations. Because of these occupations, they have transhumance or nomadism, and because of this, many times their social, educational forwardness is very low or minimal. Even these communities also come under the category of backward classes. We have many artisanry castes or occupational classes, but these artisanry castes or occupational classes are not having any secured employment because of their traditional occupations. Now presently, most of these traditional occupations have ceased to be remunerative. Hence, they are also economically very backward, and even these communities also come under the category of backward classes. We have many other communities where majority of these communities do not have sufficient education. Therefore, they are not in a position to secure any adequate representation in government services or quasi-government services. Even these groups also come under the category of backward classes. We have various social groups, not only from the Hindu community but also from other religious groups like Muslims or Christians or Sikhs. They are backward economically, socially as well as educationally. Even these groups also come under the category of backward classes. We can include another category of communities into the backward classes, particularly communities not occupying positions of higher status in the social hierarchy. So these classifications talk about a variety of groups because of their backwardness, whether it is social or economic or educational backwardness. All these are considered as backward classes. In other words, the term backward classes notifies various groups, and we follow certain criteria in order to describe the backwardness. If they are having backwardness as per the criteria, then we call them as backward classes. Either one caste or one class cannot be considered as backward classes because it is a very big group. But before going into this criteria in order to decide whether they are backward or not, let us throw some light on what type of social exclusion we are observing with reference to backward classes. All of us are observing it. Let us see the causes for social exclusion of backward classes. The first and foremost one is, this group is a very big group. Not only that, it is a kind of indefinite group, abstract group. Hence, the first cause for social exclusion is the nature of the group. We can say it as backward classes are an unorganized category. It consists of various castes, thousands of castes and communities. Another reason for social exclusion is most of them are landless agricultural laborers. Their incomes are very low. Many of them are artisans or having traditional occupations, and these traditional occupations have lost their importance now, and this cause can be explained as economic backwardness. Another aspect which we have to see is, because of their economic position and because of their cultural norms, their educational levels also are very low, and socially also, in the hierarchy of stratification prevalent in our society, they are looked down upon. So, another cause is educational and social backwardness. Because of the unorganizedness of the category, namely backward classes, they are not organized politically, hence their representation also is very less. Hence, this is another reason. Political unorganization also should be considered. Very recently, some of the political parties tried to bring all backward classes into one group, but this happened only during the last quarters of 20th century. Prior to that, they were not politically organized. Not only that, whenever any caste or community or group loses its traditional occupation or economic pursuit or loses its land and becomes agricultural laborers, then that group will enter into the category of backward classes. Hence, another reason which we can mention is ever increasing number of backward castes and communities. Our government, even prior to independence, we thought of giving some reservations for backward classes, but many times we come across a situation where the facility of reservation is abused. When it is abused, it always happens whenever a reservation should be given to a particular caste person or community person, that will not go to the needed person, but another person who is having various types of powers, either political or social or educational power, will be utilizing that reservation. So, this creates more and more imbalances or inequalities. This is another reason for the backwardness or growing population and other backward classes. We started with reservation. What is this? Why should we give? Constitution provides various rights to all citizens, including backward classes. But it is not like that. There are so many castes and communities who are economically, educationally backward. Any government would be under a need to provide some kind of opportunities for them so that they can improve their position, their social, educational and economic position. This facility is known as reservation. Reservations are not post-independence phenomenon. Even prior to independence also, there emerged some situations where reservations were provided. Of course, these occurred in small kingdoms. For instance, in the year 1902, 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 𝗧𝗧𝗧, who was a ruler of a small kingdom, namely Kolhapur state in Maharashtra, he has introduced reservations, particularly the jobs, and he provided jobs in his own kingdom for certain classes, and in his kingdom backward castes were termed as Antya. Similarly, Mysore state, the present Karnataka state, previously known as Mysore state, also provided reservations for backward classes. In the year 1921, Miller Committee, which was appointed by the British government, submitted one report, and on the basis of this report, Mysore state has introduced reservations for scheduled castes, backward castes, and most of these castes were non-Brahmin castes. Madras presidency also followed Mysore state. Even that presidency also has introduced reservations for the backward classes. At that time, of course, they have used caste in some states and class in some other. For instance, in the year 1931, Bombay presidency also initiated reservations, and a state committee was constituted at that time for the depressed classes as well as backward classes. On the basis of report of this state committee, Bombay presidency has introduced reservations. Government of India Act of 1935 is very famous because it provides nearly many provisions for our Government of India Act of 1947 and later for our Constitution. 1935 Government of India Act also has incorporated certain provisions for the reservations, particularly for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other backward classes, castes. These aspects are pre-independence era. After independence, after implementation of our constitution makers as well as our leaders strongly felt that backward classes should be given a chance to improve their social, economic and educational situation. Article 340 of our constitution is very important in this context. Article 340 provides for the appointment of a commission to investigate the conditions of backward classes. In other words, the government thought that first let us identify the problems, identify the conditions which are creating backwardness amongst various classes and castes, and accordingly let us do our level best to reduce all these inequalities. And under Article 340, President appointed the first backward classes commission under the chairmanship of Sri 𝗂𝗽𝗃 𝗂𝗽𝗃 in the year 1951, and this committee presented its report in the year 1953. When 𝗂𝗃𝗃 committee was constituted, it has adopted certain criteria in order to know what is meant by backwardness, which community or which caste can be considered as a backward caste. Let us see this criteria. First criterion which 𝗂𝗃𝗃 commission adopted is low social position, the traditional caste hierarchy of Hindu society. If lower castes are there, or if you take Varna system, Shudra caste or even castes below the Shudra Varna, all these castes will come under the category of backward classes. Second criterion used by 𝗂𝗃𝗃 commission is lack of general advancement among the major section of a caste or community. If many people are not advanced, then that also is a criterion for backwardness. Third criterion is inadequate or no representation in government services. Fourth criterion is inadequate representation in the field of trade, commerce and industry. These four criteria were taken into consideration by 𝗂𝗃𝗃's commission, and 𝗂𝗃𝗃's committee given its report to the government, but it was not accepted by the government because government wanted to see not on the basis of caste but on the basis of only other criteria not related to caste. 𝗂𝗃𝗃's commission clearly said that unless and until we take the caste, we are not able to find out a good criterion for questioning or identifying backwardness. Then the government appointed another committee, a department secretary was appointed as a committee chairperson. Even this committee also felt that there is a strong link between caste and class, backwardness and lower castes. This is about the genesis or the definitional part of backward classes. Let us see how questions can be given. What type of commissions were appointed by the government? When reservation started? Where? How many communities or what communities can be included into the major category of backward classes, and all these topics questions can be given. Let us see one question. The first commission on backward classes was headed by 4 answers. Let us see. First answer is Mr. B.P. Mandal. Answer B, 𝗂𝗃 𝗚𝗃. Answer C, M.H. Beg. Answer D, Mr. V.P. Singh. Just now we discussed, the first commission was constituted by the president under the chairperson of Sri 𝗂𝗃 𝗚𝗃. Hence, the correct answer is answer B. When 𝗚𝗃 commission and later secretary's commission reports were submitted to the government, many other state governments also constituted committees. For instance, Madras has constituted a committee under the chairpersonship of Satyanathan. Similarly, Mysore also constituted another committee. But all these were trying to identifying backward classes, castes within their own states. When these committees submitted their report, the government felt that there is a need to identify how many caste communities are backward. Unless and until we know how many are backward, it is not that easy to prepare any policy, isn't it? Hence, in the year 1979, another commission was constituted by the central government, and it is popularly known as the Mandal Commission. It was established in the year 1979 by the then Janata Party government under the Prime Ministership of Morarji Desai, and the mandate which was given to this Mandal Commission was to identify the socially or educationally backward communities or classes or castes. B.P. Mandal, who was a member of parliament, was the chairman for this commission. This commission we usually considered as second backward classes commission. And this commission was having certain aims. Let us see how these aims are framed. First aim is they wanted to determine the criteria on the basis of which we can declare a community as a backward community. So, this committee has taken the duty of determining the criteria for defining socially and educationally backwardness of various classes. And the second function of Mandal Commission is to recommend steps to be taken for the advancement of the backward classes so identified. First, identification, next taking various actions in order to include them. Not only that, this committee wanted to examine the desirability or otherwise of making provisions for the reservation of appointments or posts in favor of such backward classes of citizens. The reason for having this particular function is, previously how many members are there in government jobs, particularly from backward classes? That was one of the criteria. So, whenever we talked about reservations, we talked about only reservations in government posts or reservations in Lok Sabha or state level Vidhana Sabha. But here clearly it is mentioned in Mandal Commission's functions that they would like to know whether any provision is there already, whether there is any need to make any provisions in government jobs, particularly in favor of backward classes. Other one is to present a report setting out the facts as found by the commission and making such recommendations as the commission think proper. These are the 4 major objectives of Mandal's commission. Mandal Commission has identified various criteria, and these criteria are very well formulated criteria. Altogether some 11 criteria it has mentioned, and not that, for each criterion some weightage points also are added. On the basis of that weightage points, it was measured how much backward a caste or community is. On that basis only, whether any programs or welfare measures can be taken or not, that was decided. Let us see these criteria. Broadly, we can divide these criteria into 3 categories. BP Mandal has taken 3 broad categories as criteria. Let us see what are they. The first one is social criteria. Second criterion is educational aspects or educational criteria. Third criteria include economic aspects. Under each criterion, various sub-criteria also are mentioned by the Mandal Commission. Let us see what are these sub-criteria. Under social criteria, Mandal has mentioned 4 points. The first one is social backwardness as considered by others. If other communities consider a particular community or caste is socially backward, then that will be taken into consideration as a criterion. And the second one is dependence on manual labor for livelihood. Agricultural landless laborers or people who are doing manual occupations, or in some cases sheep herders or cattle herders, all these persons are dependent upon manual labor for their livelihood. Third sub-criterion under social criteria include marriage related aspects. If 25% girls and 10% of boys in rural areas, similarly 10% girls and 5% boys in urban areas below 17 years are married by that particular community, then that community is a backward community. Fourth sub-criterion under social criteria is female work participation. If female work participation is more than 25% than the state average, then there is backwardness, social backwardness in that particular community. These are sub-criteria under social criteria. Let us say educational criteria also. Children between 5 years and 15 years never attended a school, and this percentage is more than 25% above the state average, then that is educational backwardness. Student dropout rate is more than 25% than the state average, even that also is a kind of educational backwardness. Matriculation rate is less than 25% below the state average. This is another criterion for educational backwardness. Then what economic aspects Mr. Mandal has mentioned, let us have a look. Average value of family assets, if they are less than 25% below the state average, then that is economic backwardness. Similarly, families living in kacha houses, we usually call them as gudiselu or huts, etc. If that percentage is more than 25% or above 25% than the state average, then that is economic backwardness. Sources of drinking water also is one such criterion. If persons are expected to go beyond 500 meters and such population is more than 50% of the state average families, then that is another economic criterion for backwardness. Consumption of loans is another aspect taken into consideration by Mandal Commission. Consumption of loans by households, particularly 25% or more than that than state average, was considered as economic backwardness criterion. Not only that, all these criteria, sub-criteria will have some weightage points, and each point will be added if 50% or out of 11, altogether some 22 criteria are taken into consideration. If 50%, 11 points are showing backwardness, then that particular community will be considered as backward classes. This rule is recommended by Mandal Commission. Mandal Commission's report came into effect later, which also created lot of hubbub in our country, which resulted in pro or anti reservation movements also. Let us keep that aside for some time and let us see certain other concepts which we have to remember while discussing inclusive as well as exclusion of backward classes. Creamy layer is a very important concept in this context, and this word is used in Indian politics. Creamy layer refers to relatively wealthier and better educated members of other backward classes. In any backward class or community, some may be educationally forward, some may be educationally backward. Similarly, economically forward and economically backward. Within a particular community, if some are educationally forward, some are wealthier, then that particular part of that backward class will be considered as creamy layer. And this creamy layer is not eligible for any government sponsored educational and professional benefit programs. This is the significance of creamy layer. In fact, this word creamy layer word was introduced by 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 Commission in the year 1971, and he said that the creamy layer should be excluded from the reservations. Particularly at the time it was termed as quota, reservations of civil posts and services granted to the other backward classes either as per the provisions of the Constitution of India or in government posts. Later, the Supreme Court of India also defined this concept, namely creamy layer, and it has asked the Indian government to present a memorandum. Particularly, this memorandum was asked by the Supreme Court to submit in the year 1993. When it has happened, let us have a look. In fact, one public interest litigation was filed before the Supreme Court. This case is known as 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 versus Union of India. In this public interest litigation, it was challenged certain aspects of Mandal Commission, particularly conclusion of the Mandal Commission that about 52% of the total population of India belong to other backward classes, because Mandal Commission talks about more than 3000 castes as backward castes. In April 2006, the government decided to reserve nearly 27% of the seats for students from the other backward classes segment and institutes of higher learning in India. And this would have reduced the seats for general and unreserved candidates to about 50% after taking into other reserved seats into account. And this was questioned in the public interest litigation. Indian Parliament passed a bill in this context to bring out an amendment to the Constitution in this regard, particularly enhancing the reservations in higher educational institutions. And 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 challenged the validity of the amendment to the Constitution, amending the Constitution related to the enhancement of reservations. Supreme Court of India, in response to this public interest litigation, refused to stay the constitutional amendment and issued notice to the government. In this context, it has used the word creamy layer. Let us see how questions can be given on this. What is meant by creamy layer? Which case is linked with creamy layer concept? When it was decided? What are the facts? How we are understanding creamy layer now? Is it only on the basis of economic criterion, or social educational criteria also are taken into consideration? And all these aspects we can expect some questions. Let us see one question on creamy layer concept itself. The creamy layer concept refers to: answer A, the grouping based on social status; answer B, the grouping based on castes; answer C, the grouping based on economic status; and answer D, the grouping based on milk consumption. Cream is related to milk, isn't it? Here, when we talk about backward classes, we are talking about caste basis of backwardness, no doubt. But within one backward class, if some are wealthier, some are educationally forward, then that shows the economic status of that particular community. Hence, our correct answer would be answer C, that is grouping based on economic status. We have introduced many welfare measures for the benefit of backward classes in order to improve their socio-economic educational position and bring forwardness in their situation. These welfare measures can be broadly studied under governmental programs and also institutional programs or establishing certain institutions. Whenever we talk about governmental programs or initiatives by the government, we usually refer structural aspects of government also, or which ministry takes up all these activities and implements them. In case of other backward classes, we have an exclusive ministry, namely Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and it is a Government of India ministry. It is a central level ministry and it is responsible for welfare, social justice and empowerment of disadvantaged and marginalized sections of society. Of course, here it is not only meant for other backward classes, even scheduled castes and scheduled other classes also fall under the category, but we usually see emphasis will be given to the first part, welfare, social justice, empowerment of disadvantaged and marginalized sections. Most of the other backward classes are marginalized and disadvantaged. Hence, major activities of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment are meant for improving the position of other backward classes. It also includes victims of drug abuse, but their number compared to backward classes is less. When we talk about Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, let us have a glance of history of this department. In the year 1985-86, the former Ministry of Welfare was divided into the Department of Women and Child Development and the Department of Welfare. Prior to 1985-86, there was a Ministry of Welfare. At the same time, the Scheduled Caste Development Division, Tribal Development Division and the Minorities and Backward Classes Welfare Division of Ministry of Home Affairs and the Waqf Division of the Ministry of Law left those ministries to form a new Ministry of Welfare, and this new Ministry of Welfare adopted the name Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment in the year 1998, starting from May onwards. Another important institution meant for the welfare of backward classes is the National Commission for Backward Classes. The Supreme Court of India, in its judgment held in the year 1992 in a writ petition popularly known as Indira Sahani and others versus Union of India and others, directed the Government of India and state governments as well as union territories to constitute a permanent body in the nature of a commission or tribunal, and this commission is expected to do certain activities. This commission or tribunal, as per the directions of Supreme Court, should be there for entertaining, examining and recommending upon requests for inclusion and complaints of inclusion or under inclusion or over inclusion in the list of other backward classes. This had to happen. The reason is many castes and communities were asking the government to include their caste name or their community name in the list of other backward classes, quoting that they are backward because of either social criteria or educational criteria or economic criteria. In order to tackle this situation, Supreme Court has given a direction to the government to constitute a National Commission, and National Commission came into existence because of this direction. National Commission for Backward Classes Act was enacted as Act number 27 of 1993 for setting up of a commission at national level, namely National Commission for Backward Classes, and it is a permanent body. It is not a limited time period body, but it is a permanent body, statutory one. When we expect some questions from these topics, let us see how they can be. We may get questions about when National Commission for Backward Classes came into existence, how many members will be there, which case led to the establishment of National Commission, what are the duties of National Commission, or what type of outcome we have received, or what is happening now presently. Let us see some questions here. National Commission for Other Backward Classes came into effect from answer A 1993, answer B 1995, answer C 1992 and answer D 2003. All these four answers are linked with a specific time period, and we know that in the year 1993 National Commission for Other Backward Classes came into existence in pursuance of a direction given by the Supreme Court of India to the government. Hence, our answer A is correct answer. How many members are there in the National Commission for Other Backward Classes? Answer A 4, answer B 6, answer C 3, answer D 8. When we see the constitution of National Commission of Other Backward Classes, we clearly see there the 3 members will be there in this commission. Hence, answer C will be the correct answer for our question. When other backward classes, in order to improve their economic position, in order to develop themselves, if they are taking up various economic pursuits, there is a need to support them. In order to support them, another institution also is incorporated, NBCFDC, National Backward Classes Finance and Development Corporation. This is incorporated under section 25 of the Companies Act of 1956 on 13th January 1992. This is incorporated as a company but not for profit, and its objective is to promote economic and developmental activities for the benefit of backward classes and to assist the poorer section of these backward classes in skill development and self-employment ventures. So, this corporation provides various facilities for the economic development of backward classes. NBCFDC also provides financial assistance through state channelizing agencies. These agencies will be nominated by the state government as well as union territories, and it also provides microfinancing. We have so many self-help groups or state channelizing agencies, and through these self-help groups, microfinancing facility also will be given to people. Backward classes are backward, but in order to remove that backwardness, we have various programs. Here once again state central schemes are there. Besides that, non-governmental organizations also are working for the betterment of backward classes. In order to improve their political representation, many political parties also trying to give some kind of opportunities for them. We know in some of the states, backward classes political associations play a vital role. We are having pressure groups, we are having lobbying also, where backward classes developmental activities will be given importance. What about our state? Even in our state also, all central sponsored programs, state level programs are going on. But are there any specific programs in our state? Let us have a look. In order to understand what type of programs we are taking up, first we have to map how many backward class communities are there, how to categorize them, what type of facilities we can provide them, in what fields. Backward classes communities pursuing traditional activities, particularly cattle and sheep rearing or toddy topping, or earthworks or fishing or weaving or goldsmithery or smithery activities like goldsmith, blacksmith, ironsmith, etc. Carpenters are there, they are also backward classes. Stone carving occupation also is taken up by them. Laundry, pottery, or oil pressing. These are all various occupations which are taken up by the other backward classes. Our government has identified various backward classes. There are 112 communities in our state considered by the government as backward classes. These communities are divided into 5 subcategories. They are named as Group A, B, C, D and E. Here it is not only caste based one, even economic backwardness also is taken into consideration. For instance, Group E of backward classes is having economic backwardness as one of the major criteria which defines their backwardness. We are having backward classes welfare department, and it is a bifurcated department from the social welfare department. In the year 1975, social welfare department is bifurcated and a separate department for backward classes is constituted. And we also have backward classes Service Cooperative Finance Corporation. This came into existence in the year 1975 and it is running till now. We also have various programs exclusively meant for backward classes welfare, having hostels, giving scholarships, waiver of tuition fee or giving books or free transport for health facilities, having educational institutions, particularly higher educational institutions, where backward classes children will be given certain facilities, scholarships or some kind of incentives. All these programs are there even in our state, just like any other state. Very recently, the present budget, 2 backward class communities are given some kind of benefits by the Telangana government. All of you probably are well aware, that is, sheep herders are given some benefits under 2017-18 budget. In a nutshell, we can say welfare schemes for other backward classes in Telangana include various welfare, educational and economic developmental programs to uplift these communities. We can identify BC welfare hostels, residential schools, pre and post metric scholarships, fee waiver, tuition fee reimbursement to the economically backward class students and all other welfare measures aiming to include people who are backward, that includes scheduled caste or scheduled tribe or other people, economically backward people. All these are welfare schemes available for other backward classes in our state, just like in any other state. When we prepare for any competitive examinations, we usually expect questions on various topics related to other backward classes. Let us divide this topic for the convenience of our study into 4 major chunks. First, who are backward classes or who can be included into backward classes? Which committee talked about backwardness? What constitution says? This is one part. Second one is, what is the present position of backward classes? What type of disabilities they are facing? How they are excluded? What is happening? Are these exclusions statewide or different from one state to other state? Are they exclusively meant for only one particular community or one particular state? So, it is a kind of whatever is happening in our present day society or current affairs, you can say. Third chunk would be, how many institutions are there meant for the development of backward classes? What are they? What about their structural aspects? How they are functioning? How much budget is allotted for them? And the fourth one is how all these, whether constitutional safeguards or welfare measures or governmental programs or various institutions, are able to reduce the backwardness of backward classes. This also is a very important aspect. When we prepare our questions on the basis of these chunks, then we can answer any question given. Say for instance, when we talk about first chunk, we will be talking about constitutional provisions and different enactments. When we talk about the second chunk, we will be talking about various institutions or GOs or proceedings under which some institutions, ministries or departments came into existence and what are they. And a third one, whatever is happening in various states, say for instance in some of the states, for instance certain political parties, Janata Dal Party tried to bring a kind of somewhat organizational aspects into the backward class communities which was not that organized prior to. Even this also will become a crucial point for us. And when we study the last part of our topic, we will be talking about how much outlay budget is allocated in the present day budget and how it may create some kind of forwardness in our communities. We have to accept the fact that still many of our country people are economically, socially and educationally backward. Some communities are taking some of their cultural norms into consideration and they are claiming that their name should be included in the list of backward classes. One situation we come across in our country, backwardness is not linked with the religious status. Backwardness is linked with economic, social and educational status. When we try to reduce or get rid of this backwardness, we have to take care of the needs of each and every person of the country. It is not only backward class, it may be backward class, women, children or old people or the entire society as one unit. Unless and until we work for the development of the entire society, these inequalities will be troubling us.